Let us quickly look at what are the different greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is the first one, which the major sources of CO2 include fossil fuels and deforestation. It contributes to 76% of global warming. The next one is the methane. The major sources include agricultural, wetland and permafrost thaw. These contribute to around 16% of global warming. The other one is nitrous oxide. The major sources include agricultural industrial activities and it contributes to around 6% of global warming. Fluorinated gases are from industrial processes and refrigeration and they contribute to approximately 2% of global warming. So, if you look at the climate changes, greenhouse is one important factor we are talking about. So, the sun's energy being absorbed by earth and re-radiated as heat, and the greenhouse gases trap the heat and warm the planet. So, this is what is basically called as the greenhouse effect. And what are the feedback loops that are involved? The positive feedback loop is melting of ice reduces the albedo, leading to more absorption of heat in the Arctic region. These are mainly to the Arctic region. And the negative feedback means increased cloud cover reflecting the sunlight. So that means not a lot of sunlight can actually reach the sea surface. So they are being reflected. So that is the negative feedback. So these are all the two feedback loops that exist in the Arctic region with respect to climate change. And what are the different Arctic pathways by which the climate change is happening? One is the ice albedo feedback. So the melting ice reduces the reflectivity, increasing the heat absorption. So it is a positive feedback. Permafrost thaw. This releases the stored methane and CO2, amplifying the warming, positive feedback. Ocean circulation changes. The melting of ice disrupts the thermohaline circulation, affecting the global climate change. This is also a positive feedback. Wildlife and vegetation shift, altered habitats and the migration patterns due to changing temperature. So this is what is the ecological effect that is happening due to climate change. And how do we study the climate change? We can use the satellite observations. We can monitor the ice cover change, temperature and the greenhouse gas concentration. Ice core sampling can be carried out where analyzing the trapped gases and particles to study the past climates. From that we can understand what is the changes that is currently happening. Then we can actually try to understand what is responsible for this particular change. Climate models can be used. These predict the future climate scenarios based on the current data. Then the field research, we can actually go to the location and carry out that, collecting data on temperature, ice thickness and greenhouse gas emissions. And here are all the various models that had been used to identify how the global climate changes are happening. So the energy balance models are developed in 1970s. The parameters used were basically the solar radiation, that is incoming shortwave, and the surface albedo, that is the reflectivity, and greenhouse concentration are the parameters that were used. What is the interrelationship that was found out? The examined changes in solar radiation and surface albedo affecting the global temperature. So there is a relationship between solar radiation and surface albedo. Balance of incoming and outgoing energy influences the climate stability. So whatever we receive, if it is sent out, that means basically no net change will be there. So this is a basic understanding. What is the general circulation model? It was developed in 1970s. Here the parameters used were atmospheric pressure, humidity and temperature. Ocean currents and temperatures were also used. Land surface properties like vegetation and soil moistures were included. The integrated atmospheric and oceanic processes simulating feedback loops and impacting polar application can be found out using this general circulation model. Then MIT Atmospheric Ocean General Circulation Model, UK Meteorological Office GCM, Goddard Institutes for Space Studies model are various other models which people had used to identify how the changes are actually happening. And what are the different monitoring network we talked about is being carried out. One is the Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program, AMAP, which was established in 1991. Here, they regularly assess the atmospheric greenhouse gas concentration and environmental changes. Then Global Atmospheric Watch is, they have set up various monitoring stations in the Arctic location for greenhouse gases. Arctic Climate Impact Assessment basically integrates the data from monitoring network to assess the Arctic climate changes. AMRIFLEX, Arctic Observatory Network, Atmospheric Radiation Measurement Program are the other programs which are used to measure or monitor how the changes are happening in the Arctic region. And of course, IPCC received the Nobel Prize. So they have been working for several years before they received the Nobel Prize in 2007. So they started in 1990. The first assessment report, they identified that greenhouse gases emission leads to warming. So that is the first identification that happened in 1990. Then in the second report, they said The sensitivity of polar ecosystems to climate change has been identified. In the third assessment report, they identified the connection between greenhouse gas concentration and the Arctic impact. And in the fourth assessment report, they have mentioned about the ice albedo. Like that, from various further report, they started mentioning what are all the changes happening. In the 2021 recent report, what they said is, there is a very much urgency for the climate action. They provided the updated projection for the temperature increase, sea ice loss and impacts on ecosystem and communities in the Arctic. So we have to act immediately. That's what has been proposed by the sixth assessment report by the IPCC. And what are all the other important things that has been mentioned? The special report on global warming of 1.5 degree was reported in the 2018. Special report on ocean and the cryosphere was carried out in 2019. Various collaborative researches are ongoing and the projection and the scenarios had been developed by the various scientists. And incorporating indigenous knowledge is recently happening, so that the entire we can have a holistic understanding of what is actually happening in the Arctic region. And of course, there are various governmental organizations which are involved in that, and NASA is a very important organization. It conducts satellite observation and research on climate change and greenhouse gases, especially in the Arctic region. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration monitors the atmospheric conditions and greenhouse gas concentration in the Arctic region. US Geological Survey, Environment and Climate Change of Canada, Russian Federal Services for Hydrometeorology and Environmental Monitoring, UK Med Office, European Environment Agency and European Commission, all of the government organizations are involved in monitoring what is changing in the Arctic region. And of course, IPCC is another important international organization which has been contributing quite a bit to the changes happening in the Arctic region. Arctic Council and the World Meteorological Organization are also involved in facilitating cooperation among Arctic states, also supporting the global monitoring efforts. Then some of the non-governmental organizations include Worldwide Fund, Green Space and the Arctic Institute, or some other organizations which are involved in studying what is the changes happening in the Arctic region and especially the greenhouse gas and the climate change effects.